it's me, Bill from HistoryHighlights.com. Thanks for joining us for another episode of History Highlights. And today, for August the 22nd, my goodness, what a momentous date. A date where humankind's history changed dramatically. It's equal, I would say, to the day that the caveman carved out the wheel. It's the day that steam-powered transportation began in America. Hard to imagine a time when it was only rowing or poling or dragging a boat across water or riding a horse to get from place to place. But now suddenly an engine, a machine, mechanized travel to move you upstream or downstream from one side of the lake to another, is a momentous day in history. When I frequently lecture aboard riverboat cruises, I often ask the audience to raise their hand if they know Robert Fulton as the inventor of the steamboat, and almost all of the audience then raises their hand. But, like so many things that we think we know, we only know a part of the story. You see, the real father of steam transportation in the United States debuted his first steam-powered vessel in 1787. That's 20 years before Robert Fulton debuted his first steamboat. But the story of that forgotten inventor begins even earlier. Let me introduce you to an unlikely hero by the name of John Fitch. John Fitch was born in 1743 in Connecticut. His eventual marriage unfortunately yielded turbulence. His journals recorded his side of the story, and they report the verbal and physical abuse he received from his mercurial wife. But in the late 1770s, he fled his domestic life. He traveled westward over the Appalachian Mountains to settle and reorganize his life in Kentucky. Now, Fitch had worked as a clockmaker and had always been mechanically inclined, and the concept of steam engines empowering waterborne transportation had fascinated him even before he had ever seen a steam engine. Steam engines in the 1780s were rare wonders that originally were used to pump water out of mine shafts so miners could continue to work. But Fitch began to envision how that energy might move a boat across the water. So Fitch returned to Pennsylvania in 1782. He made some drawings, he secured some investors, and he set to work. And the Steamboat Era began in America when John Fitch made the first successful trial of his 45-foot steamboat on the Delaware River on August the 22nd of 1787. That was debuted in front of members of the Constitutional Convention that were in town to draw up that fascinating document. Well, what a miraculous moment that must have been to witness the initial success of mechanized transportation, to overcome the current of the river without any manual propulsion. What an incredible leap forward in human evolution to develop a machine to move cargo and people from place to place. Well, that first steamboat was an odd machine. It was basically a 45-foot long, oversized canoe with the steam engine machinery connected to two long rods. Attached to those rods were canoe paddles. And the engine, together with the rods, toggled that back and forth so that the paddles rowed the boat through the water. But by the summer of 1790, Fitch employed the vessel transporting passengers. But people, primarily saw this little vessel just as a curiosity. John Fitch went on to construct several other steam-powered vessels in the next decade, featuring various methods of propulsion. Although John Fitch's boats were mechanically successful, they were feebly powered and they struggled against the current. They were susceptible to frequent mechanical breakdowns, and the public quickly ascertained that the vessels were undependable conveyances for cargo and passengers. The construction and operating costs of these boats far outweighed their economic benefits. Investors abandoned John Fitch and left him facing bankruptcy. So much so that in 1792, John Fitch wrote a poem in his journal to express his frustrations. He wrote, "For full the scope of 7 years, steamboats excited hopes and fears in me, but now I see it plain, all further progress is in vain, and am resolved to quit a scheming, and be no longer of Patton's dreaming. Poor John Fitch returned to Bardstown, Kentucky to his land claim. He fell into a despair. He prophetically wrote in his journal, quote, "The day will come when some more powerful man will get fame and riches for my invention, but nobody will believe that poor John Fitch can do anything worthy of attention." Well, failure broke Fitch. He transferred ownership of some of his property to the local innkeeper to secure lodging and a daily ration of whiskey. He eventually relinquished additional lands to increase his whiskey allotment, and Fitch apparently later added opium to that mix until he finally ended his own life in 1798 at age 55 years. He did leave a meager will and prefaced that will with these words: "I know of nothing so perplexing and vexatious as a turbulent wife and steamboat building. I experienced the former and quit in season, and had I been in my right senses, I should undoubtedly have treated the latter in the same manner. But for one man to be teased with both, he must be looked upon as the most unfortunate man in the world." John Fitch was buried unceremoniously in Bardstown's Pioneer Cemetery and almost forgotten in the pages of history. The memory of Fitch's accomplishments and contributions were almost lost until his drawings, documents, and other records from the Constitutional Convention members confirmed the significance of his efforts. So the United States Congress in the 1920s reinterred his remains within a 2-columned gray marble monument, complete with bronze placard commemorating his achievements. And what I love best is adjacent to the memorial remains a wooden replica of Fitch's historic first steamboat. John Fitch in 1787 demonstrated that steam power was feasible for moving a vessel across the water. His efforts signaled to the nation the pending economic impact of this invention. And then other inventors were feverishly pursuing the dream of mechanized transportation. Only 4 months after John Fitch debuted his first steamboat, Maryland's James Rumsey in December of 1787 launched his steamboat. It was propelled by a stream of water thrust out at the vessel's stern. There was even a Rumsey Society founded in Philadelphia in 1788, which included such dignitaries as Benjamin Franklin. This group gathered to support furthering Rumsey's schemes, and many others would follow in these men's footsteps, including John Stevens, Nicholas Roosevelt, and Robert Livingston. These inventors and entrepreneurs could envision the possibilities and knew that the first person to increase reliability would reap extraordinary profits and secure their name in history. The development of mechanical transportation, downstream or upstream, opened the interior of America to expansion and development through the massive transportation arteries of America's rivers. Soon, riverfront ports would be bustling with commercial development, but that is a story for another day and another episode of History Highlights. Hey, I just wanted to remind you, lots more information about the Steamboat Era as it developed along the lower Mississippi River in our Lower Mississippi River virtual cruise that reenacts a cruise 7 days between New Orleans and Memphis with all the ports and the highlights and the excursions and the history and lecture series. So come on over and check that out. Don't forget, members, we've got a great group of members that help make all of these programs possible. Hope you'll come and join. You can find out more information at our website. You can join our email list and make sure that we can send you updates when we have new programs coming out. That's all at historyhighlights.com. And again, my name is Bill Weemuth, and I'm so thankful for you joining me today to learn a little more about our fascinating American history, especially today as we started steam-powered transportation on August 22nd of 1787. Have a great day, folks. I'll talk to you soon.